My son described our camping trip in class. Now the authorities wanted to talk to me. The principal's voice on the phone was careful, measured in that specific way that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up. Mr. Ashford, we need you to come to the school as soon as possible. There's been a situation involving Liam's presentation today. I was at my desk at the accounting firm, halfway through reconciling a client's quarterly taxes, and I remember thinking this was about him forgetting his permission slip for the field trip or maybe getting into a scuffle at recess. My 8-year-old son was spirited but generally well-behaved. Is he okay? I asked, already saving my spreadsheet. He's fine physically, Principal Denise Hartford said, and that qualifier, that single word, physically, sent ice through my veins. But we have some concerns. Detective James Moreno from the County Sheriff's Department is here, and he'd like to speak with you. How quickly can you get here? The room tilted. Detective, Sheriff's Department. My hands found my car keys before my brain fully processed what was happening. The drive to Riverside Elementary took 12 minutes, but I don't remember most of it. My mind was racing through every possible scenario. Had someone hurt Liam? Had he witnessed something? The school parking lot had 2 police cruisers near the front entrance, and I felt every eye on me as I walked through those double doors. Mrs. Hartford met me in the hallway, her usual warm smile replaced with professional concern. Mr. Ashford, thank you for coming so quickly. Please, follow me. She led me to the conference room, not her office, which felt significant in a way I couldn't quite name. Inside sat a man in his late 40s with graying temples and the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd seen too much. He stood when I entered, extending his hand. Detective James Moreno, County Sheriff's Office, Child Protection Unit. Child Protection Unit. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'm sorry, what is this about? Where's my son? I demanded, my voice harder than I intended. The detective gestured to a chair. Liam is in the counselor's office with Ms. Beverly Kim, our school therapist. He's safe. Please, sit down. I sat because my legs suddenly felt unreliable. Principal Hartford closed the door and took a seat across from me. Detective Moreno pulled out a small notebook and a digital recorder. Do you mind if I record this conversation? He asked. Everything in me wanted to refuse, to demand a lawyer, to understand what was happening before I said a word. But I also knew that innocent people didn't lawyer up immediately, and whatever this was, I was innocent. Go ahead, I said, my mouth dry. He pressed record and stated the date, time, location, and participants. Mr. Ashford, I understand that you took your son Liam camping last weekend, is that correct? The camping trip. My mind flashed through those 3 days in the Sierra Nevada mountains, just me and Liam in our tent, fishing in the creek, roasting marshmallows, teaching him how to identify constellations. It had been perfect. Our first solo camping trip since his mother Rebecca and I divorced 2 years ago. Yes, we went camping, Friday through Sunday. We go every few months. Why? Detective Moreno exchanged a glance with the principal. Liam had a presentation in his 3rd grade class this morning. Each student was asked to share about their weekend. According to his teacher, Ms. Angela Foster, Liam described some events from the camping trip that raised significant concerns. He opened his notebook, and I could see handwritten notes in neat block letters. He told the class, and I'm reading from the teacher's written account here, that Daddy made me take all my clothes off even though it was cold, that he watched me the whole time I was naked, and that it hurt, but Daddy said I had to be tough. The words hung in the air like poison gas. I felt my face flush hot, then cold, then hot again. What? No, that's not... He's talking about... I stopped, trying to force my panicking brain to reconstruct the events Liam was describing. Then it clicked, and the absurdity of the situation would have made me laugh if the detective's expression wasn't so deadly serious. He fell in the creek, I said. Saturday afternoon. We were fishing, and he slipped on the rocks, went completely under. All his clothes were soaked, and it was maybe 50 degrees out. I made him strip out of the wet clothes immediately because hypothermia can set in fast with kids. I was watching him to make sure he wasn't showing signs of it. You know, shivering, confusion. And yes, it hurt. His hands and feet were freezing, but I made him tough it out while I got the fire going and found his dry clothes in the tent. The detective wrote this down, his expression unchanged. And you didn't think to mention this to anyone? To call Mrs. Ashford? To inform the school? The question felt like an accusation dressed as curiosity. Mention it? It was a minor accident. Kids fall down all the time. He was fine within 20 minutes, warming up by the fire in dry clothes. Why would I call his mother or the school about a kid getting wet while camping? Principal Hartford leaned forward. Mr. Ashford, you have to understand. When a child describes being forced to remove their clothing while an adult watches, uses phrases like, it hurt, and connects it to being alone with a parent, we are mandated reporters. We have to take these concerns seriously. I understood the words individually, but strung together they created a reality I couldn't quite grasp. You think I molested my son? I said flatly. The detective's face remained neutral. I'm conducting an investigation into allegations of potential child abuse. That investigation includes speaking with you, with Liam, with his mother, and with anyone else who might have relevant information. I need you to walk me through the entire camping trip, hour by hour. The next 90 minutes were surreal. I described every moment of that weekend while Detective Moreno took notes and occasionally asked clarifying questions. What time did we leave Friday? Where exactly did we camp? Did anyone see us? What did we eat? When did Liam fall in the creek? Were there any witnesses to the incident? How long was he naked? Did I take any photos? That last question made my blood run cold because yes, I had taken photos. Hundreds of photos. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened the camera roll. There were pictures of Liam holding his first caught trout, grinning beside our tent, roasting marshmallows, pointing at a deer we'd spotted. And there, among the innocent memories, were 3 photos I'd taken of him wrapped in my emergency thermal blanket by the fire, his wet clothes hanging from a branch behind him. I'd sent one to Rebecca with the caption, "Minor fishing mishap, but all good." She'd responded with a laughing emoji and classic Liam. I showed the detective the photos, my hands still trembling. See? He's wrapped in the blanket. I took these to document that he was okay, and I sent one to his mother right after it happened. Detective Moreno examined the photos carefully, zooming in on details I couldn't see. What time were these taken? I checked the metadata. 2:47 p.m. Saturday. The timestamp is right there. He noted this down. And you have more photos from the trip? I handed him the phone. Look through all of them. There's nothing inappropriate. It was just a dad and his kid camping. He scrolled through slowly, his face impossible to read. Minutes passed. Principal Hartford excused herself, mentioning something about checking on Liam, and suddenly I was alone in a conference room with a detective examining my phone for evidence of crimes I hadn't committed. "Mr. Ashford," he finally said, handing the phone back, "I'm going to need you to email these photos to this address." He slid a business card across the table. "I'll also need a list of anyone who can verify your whereabouts that weekend, any receipts from the trip, anything that can corroborate your account." The word account stung, like this was a story I was telling, not the truth of what happened. "Are you charging me with something?" I asked. "Am I under arrest?" He shook his head. "Not at this time. But I am opening a case file, and Children's Protective Services will be conducting their own investigation. Someone will likely contact you within 24 hours. CPS. The words I'd only heard in news stories about terrible parents, about actual abuse. "Can I see my son?" I asked. "I want to talk to him, to explain." "That's not advisable right now," the detective said. "Liam needs to be interviewed by a forensic specialist, someone trained to talk to children about these situations without leading questions or influence. Until that interview is complete, I'm recommending limited supervised contact only." Supervised contact. With my own son. The son I'd raised since birth, whose diapers I'd changed, whose nightmares I'd soothed, who called me every night when he was at Rebecca's house just to say goodnight. "You can't do that," I said, standing up. "You can't keep me from my son based on a misunderstanding." Detective Moreno stood as well, and though he wasn't physically imposing, his authority filled the room. "I can, and I am. This is for Liam's protection while we investigate. If your account is accurate, the investigation will confirm that, but until then, we follow protocol." I left the school in a daze. Liam was still in the counselor's office, and they wouldn't let me see him. I sat in my car in the parking lot and called Rebecca. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright. "Hey, what's up? I'm in the middle of a showing." Rebecca was a real estate agent, currently between marriages, living in a condo downtown. "They think I abused Liam," I said, and saying it out loud made it feel more real and more absurd simultaneously. Silence. Then, "What? Who thinks that? What are you talking about?" I explained everything, the presentation, the detective, the misunderstanding about the creek incident. She was quiet for a long moment. "Ian, this is insane. He told me about falling in the water. He thought it was hilarious, called himself a drowned rat. I can't believe, they can't seriously think." Her voice cracked. "They're opening an investigation," I said. "CPS is going to contact us. They want supervised visitation only until they interview him." Now she was angry. "Like hell. He's supposed to come to my place tonight. This is his week with me. They can't just—" "Rebecca, they can. They are." The detective made it very clear. I heard her take a deep breath, centering herself the way she did before walking into difficult negotiations. Okay. We need a lawyer. Don't say anything else to anyone without a lawyer present." I called 3 family law attorneys that afternoon. The first 2 couldn't take the case, conflicts of interest with other clients. The third, Nathaniel Cross, agreed to meet me that evening at his office downtown. His suite was on the 14th floor of a glass building, all modern furniture and framed credentials. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. "Mr. Ashford, I've handled cases like this before," he said, after I'd explained everything. "False allegations arising from misunderstandings, usually involving very young children who don't have the vocabulary to accurately describe innocent events. The good news is that the truth generally comes out during the forensic interview. The bad news is that the process is invasive, stressful, and can take weeks or even months." Months. "What do I do?" I asked. He pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "First, You cooperate fully, but carefully. Don't volunteer information, but answer questions honestly when asked. Second, document everything from that camping trip. Receipts, photos, the text to your ex-wife, anything that proves your timeline and story. Third, we get character witnesses lined up. People who can speak to your relationship with Liam, your character, your fitness as a parent. He paused, tapping his pen against the pad. I also need to be direct with you about something. Even if you're completely innocent, which I believe you are based on what you've told me, this will follow you. The school will have to report this to other parents if Liam talks about it. Your employer might find out. Your reputation will take a hit. People hear child abuse investigation, and they remember the investigation part, not the unfounded part that comes later. I felt sick. So what? I just accept that my life is ruined because my 8-year-old couldn't articulate a camping accident properly? No, Nathaniel said firmly. We fight back. We document. We prove. We demand a thorough investigation that clears your name. And then, if necessary, we consider a defamation suit against anyone who spreads false information about you after you've been cleared. But first, we focus on the investigation. I signed a retainer agreement that cost me $3,500 I didn't really have, and I drove home to my empty apartment, the one I'd rented after the divorce, the one that had Liam's bedroom painted blue with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling because he loved space. That night, I went through every photo from the camping trip, every receipt, every piece of evidence. I'd paid for the campsite permit online, receipt dated Friday morning. I'd bought gas at a station near the trailhead, time-stamped receipt. I'd purchased groceries at an outdoor supply store, more receipts. I created a detailed timeline document, hour by hour, of what we'd done. Friday evening, arrived at campsite 6:15 p.m., set up tent, cooked hot dogs for dinner. Saturday morning, woke up at 7, made breakfast, hiked to the creek. Saturday afternoon, fishing. Liam fell in at approximately 2:45 p.m., based on photo timestamps. I documented water temperature, estimated air temperature, the steps I took to prevent hypothermia. I included the text exchange with Rebecca. I even found a weather report from that weekend showing it was indeed cold, validating why I'd been so concerned about wet clothes. By midnight, I had a 20-page document that Nathaniel called excellent work when I emailed it to him. But none of it helped me sleep. I kept imagining Liam in that counselor's office, confused about why he couldn't see his dad, maybe thinking he'd done something wrong by talking about the camping trip. The thought made my chest physically ache. Wednesday morning, and already I'd violated protocol by thinking about what day it was, a woman named Patricia Donovan from CPS called. Mr. Ashford, I've been assigned to investigate the allegations regarding your son, Liam Ashford, age 8. I'll need to meet with you, with Liam's mother, and I'll need to see your home environment where Liam stays during your custody periods. Her voice was professional, but not unkind. We scheduled a home visit for Thursday afternoon. I spent Wednesday evening cleaning my apartment with manic energy, scrubbing baseboards, organizing Liam's closet, making sure every inch of the place screamed, responsible parent. Nathaniel had warned me they'd look for hazards, inappropriate materials, anything that could suggest an unsuitable environment for a child. When Patricia Donovan arrived Thursday at 3 p.m., she was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a thick folder. She walked through my apartment slowly, taking notes. She photographed Liam's bedroom, the kitchen, the bathroom. She asked about my work schedule, my income, my relationship with Rebecca, my parenting philosophy. How would you describe your bond with Liam? She asked, sitting on my couch with her notes. The question hurt because the answer should have been obvious. He's my whole world, I said simply. After the divorce, I made sure I got 50-50 custody because I couldn't imagine not being a daily part of his life. We have our routines, our inside jokes. Every Sunday morning we make pancakes together. Every night at 8:30, even when he's at Rebecca's, we talk on the phone. He tells me about school, about his friends, about whatever's on his mind. Patricia wrote this down. And the camping trips? How often do those happen? Every 2 or 3 months, weather permitting, I said. Usually just quick weekend trips. Liam loves the outdoors, loves fishing. I grew up camping with my dad, and I wanted to share that with him. It's our thing. She nodded. Tell me about the incident with the creek, in your own words. I walked through it again, the fishing, the slippery rocks, his surprised yelp as he went under, my immediate concern about hypothermia. Have you had any medical training? She asked. First aid certification, I said. It's required for my position at the firm in case of workplace emergencies, but I took a wilderness first aid course last year too, specifically because we camp. I knew that wet clothes in cold weather is dangerous, especially for kids. Their body mass to surface area ratio means they lose heat faster than adults. Getting him dry was the priority. She made a note. You seem very prepared, very knowledgeable about child safety. I try to be, I said. Is there something wrong with that? Not at all, she said. It actually supports your account of events. But I have to ask, and please don't take this the wrong way. Has there ever been any previous investigation or allegation regarding your care of Liam? The question felt like an insult, but I kept my voice steady. Never. You can check. I've never even had a speeding ticket. My record is completely clean. She nodded. I'll be speaking with Liam tomorrow. A forensic interviewer, Dr. Lisa Warren, will conduct the interview. These are recorded and done in a specialized facility designed to make children comfortable. You and Mrs. Ashford are welcome to observe via closed-circuit television, but you cannot be in the room during the interview. Can I at least see him before then? I asked. Just to let him know I'm not mad, that he didn't do anything wrong? Patricia considered this. I'll allow a supervised visit this evening, 30 minutes, at the CPS office. I'll be present throughout. It was better than nothing. At 6 p.m., I walked into the CPS building downtown, a depressing beige structure with fluorescent lighting and the faint smell of industrial cleaner. Patricia led me to a visitation room with a small table, some toys, and a camera mounted in the corner. I'll go get him, she said. Remember, keep it light. Don't ask him about the presentation or discuss the investigation. I understand, I said, my heart hammering. When the door opened and Liam walked in, I had to fight not to cry. He looked small and confused, his Star Wars backpack hanging from one shoulder. When he saw me, his face lit up. Dad! He ran to me and I caught him in a hug, breathing in the scent of his apple-scented shampoo. Hey, buddy, I managed. I missed you. Why couldn't I come home with you from school? He asked, pulling back to look at me. Ms. Kim said there were some questions about our camping trip. I knelt down to his level, choosing my words carefully. Patricia watched from a chair by the door. Sometimes when kids talk about things that happen, grown-ups want to make extra sure everyone is safe and happy. That's all this is. Some people had questions about when you fell in the creek, remember that? He nodded enthusiastically. I was so cold, but you made a huge fire and I got warm. Exactly, I said. And tomorrow, you're going to talk to a nice doctor who wants to hear all about our trip. You just tell her the truth about everything we did, okay? The fishing, the hiking, the marshmallows, all of it. Am I in trouble? He asked, and the worry in his 8-year-old voice broke something in me. No, baby, you're not in trouble at all. You didn't do anything wrong, I promise. We played with Legos for the remaining time, building a spaceship while Patricia watched and took occasional notes. When the 30 minutes were up and Patricia said it was time to go, Liam hugged me again. When can I come back to your place? He asked. Soon, I said, hoping it was true. Really soon. I watched him leave with Patricia, his small hand in hers, and I wanted to scream at the injustice of it all. He didn't understand why his normal life had been disrupted. He just knew that something was wrong, and that uncertainty was my fault, even though I'd done nothing but keep him safe. Rebecca met me in the parking lot. She'd had her own interview with Patricia that afternoon. This is insane, she said, her voice tight with frustration. I told them about the camping trips, about what a good father you are, about the text you sent me with the photo. They're treating this like you're some kind of predator. How was Liam with you? I asked. Confused, worried. He thinks he said something wrong in class. I tried to reassure him, but what can I say? I don't even understand what's happening. She ran a hand through her hair. Nathaniel called me. He said the forensic interview tomorrow is crucial. If Liam can clearly describe the actual events, this whole thing should collapse. Friday morning arrived with the weight of everything riding on one interview. I met Rebecca and Nathaniel at the Children's Advocacy Center, a building designed to look less institutional, with bright colors and softer furniture. Dr. Lisa Warren greeted us in the lobby. She was a woman in her 40s with a calm demeanor and credentials that filled half a wall in her office. I've reviewed the case file and Detective Moreno's report, she said. I understand this appears to be a miscommunication, but I want you to know I go into every interview without preconceptions. My only goal is to understand what happened from Liam's perspective. We were led to an observation room with a television screen showing a comfortable interview room with beanbag chairs, toys, and art supplies. Liam was already there, playing with action figures. Patricia Donovan sat in the observation room with us, as did Detective Moreno. The tension was suffocating. Dr. Warren entered the interview room, introduced herself, and spent the first 10 minutes just playing with Liam, building rapport. Then, gently, she started asking questions. Liam, I heard you went camping with your dad recently. Can you tell me about that? If this story keeps your interest, please subscribe to get more stories like this. He launched into an enthusiastic description of the trip. The drive up the mountain, seeing deer on the trail, catching his first fish, how Dad taught him to cast the line properly. Dr. Warren listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions. That sounds like a lot of fun, she said. I heard something happened while you were fishing. Can you tell me about that? Oh yeah, I fell in, Liam said, laughing. The rocks were so slippery and I went splash all the way under the water. It was freezing. What happened after you fell in? Dr. Warren asked. Dad pulled me out really fast. He was yelling about hyperthermia or something, and he made me take off all my clothes because they were soaked. I was shivering so much my teeth were chattering. He demonstrated, making his teeth click together, clearly finding the memory amusing rather than traumatic. How did you feel when your dad made you take off your clothes? Dr. Warren asked, her voice carefully neutral. Cold, Liam said, and embarrassed because I was naked, but Dad said there was no one around and it was a medical emergency. He wrapped me in this shiny blanket thing and made a big fire. Doctor. Warren showed him the photo I'd sent to Rebecca, the one of him wrapped in the thermal blanket. Is this from that day? Yeah. See the fire Dad made? It was huge. He said I had to sit really close to get warm. And you mentioned in class that it hurt. Can you tell me what hurt? Liam scrunched up his face, thinking. My hands and feet hurt so bad when they started warming up. Like pins and needles, you know. Dad said that was normal, but I had to tough it out. He rubbed my feet to help them warm up faster. In the observation room, I felt Rebecca grab my hand, squeezing it tight. This was it. The moment of truth delivered in the innocent words of an 8-year-old who had no idea his camping story had nearly destroyed his father's life. Dr. Warren continued asking questions for another 20 minutes, approaching the incident from different angles, asking about other parts of the trip, about his relationship with me, about how he felt at school, at home. Every answer Liam gave painted the same picture. A fun camping trip with a minor mishap, handled appropriately by a father who prioritized his son's safety. When the interview concluded, Dr. Warren came to the observation room. I'll need to review the recording and write my report, but preliminarily, I see no indicators of abuse or trauma. Liam's affect is appropriate, his description of events is consistent and age-appropriate, and he shows no signs of coaching or fear regarding his father. Detective Moreno stood, his expression unreadable. How long until your official report is complete? I'll have it to you by Monday, Dr. Warren said. Monday. 3 more days of this nightmare, but at least now there was hope. Patricia Donovan approached me as we were leaving. Mr. Ashford, based on what I observed today and my home visit, I'm comfortable recommending the immediate reinstatement of your regular custody arrangement. I'll file my recommendation this afternoon. The relief was overwhelming, but Nathaniel placed a hand on my shoulder. Don't celebrate yet, he said quietly. We need the detective to close his investigation. We need the school to clear your name. We need documentation of all of this. He was right. This wasn't over. Monday afternoon, Detective Moreno called. Mr. Ashford, I've reviewed Dr. Warren's forensic interview report, the CPS report, and all the supporting evidence you provided. I'm closing the investigation. No charges will be filed. The incident was exactly as you described, a camping accident handled appropriately. The words should have filled me with joy, but instead, I felt anger. That's it? You put me through hell, kept me from my son, treated me like a criminal, and that's all I get? Investigation closed? He was quiet for a moment. I understand your frustration. But you have to understand, we can't ignore reports of potential abuse. A child used language that raised legitimate concerns. We followed protocol. The system worked. The system? I said, my voice rising. The system assumed I was guilty and made me prove my innocence. Do you have any idea what this has done to my reputation? What it's done to my son? I do know, he said, and for the first time I heard something like sympathy in his voice. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry you had to go through this. But I'd do the same thing again if the same report came in. Because sometimes, the system does catch real abuse. Sometimes children really are in danger. We can't know which cases are which until we investigate. I hung up without responding. Nathaniel was already drafting a letter to be sent to the school, to CPS, to anyone who had been informed of the investigation, stating that it had been closed with no findings. He also recommended I request a meeting with Principal Hartford and the school board. You want the school to issue a statement to parents, he said. Something like, a misunderstanding has been resolved and Mr. Ashford has been fully cleared of any concerns. Otherwise, rumors will spread. Parents will talk. It'll affect Liam. The meeting with Principal Hartford and 2 school board members happened Wednesday afternoon, a week and a half after this entire nightmare began. I brought Nathaniel, and I brought documentation, the closed investigation report, the CPS clearance, Dr. Warren's findings. What we're asking for is simple, Nathaniel said. A statement to the parents in Ms. Foster's class, clarifying that the concerns raised have been thoroughly investigated and resolved, and that Mr. Ashford poses no threat to any child. One of the board members, a man named Douglas Freeman, leaned back in his chair. That could open us to liability if we make statements about ongoing investigations. The investigation is closed, Nathaniel said firmly. There is nothing ongoing. What you have ongoing is a situation where a father's reputation has been damaged based on a child's innocent misstatement. If you don't correct this, Mr. Ashford has grounds for a defamation suit against the district. Principal Hartford looked uncomfortable. We followed mandatory reporting protocol. We had no choice. I'm not disputing that, I said, speaking for the first time. You did your job. But now your job is to tell the truth, which is that I did nothing wrong. My son should be able to go to school without other parents whispering about his dad. I should be able to volunteer for field trips and class events without people thinking I'm dangerous. They agreed to send a carefully worded email to the parents, reviewed by their legal team. It went out Friday morning. Dear third grade families, we want to inform you that concerns raised last week regarding a student's presentation have been investigated by appropriate authorities and fully resolved. The family involved has been completely cleared, and we appreciate your understanding and discretion regarding this private matter. It was vague, carefully neutral, but it was something. Liam returned to my custody that weekend, and we had a long talk about words and misunderstandings. I didn't mean to get you in trouble, he said, tears in his eyes. I just told them about falling in the creek. I know, buddy, I said, holding him. You told the truth, which is exactly what you should do. Sometimes grown-ups hear things differently than kids mean them, but it's all okay now. Except it wasn't all okay. Over the following weeks, I noticed the looks from other parents at school pickup. I heard the whispered conversations that stopped when I approached. One mother actually pulled her daughter away from Liam at the playground. Rebecca reported similar experiences. They don't believe the email, she said, or they think where there's smoke, there's fire. Nathaniel advised documenting every incident. If this continues, if it affects Liam's social development or your ability to parent, we can explore legal options. But what could I sue for? Looks? Whispers? The intangible destruction of reputation? Then, 3 weeks after the investigation closed, Ms. Angela Foster, Liam's teacher, called me at home. Mr. Ashford, I owe you an apology, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I've been teaching for 12 years, and I've seen real cases of abuse. When Liam used those specific phrases, I was certain. I thought I was protecting him. But I've watched him since all this happened. He talks about you constantly, always positive, always excited about your time together. And I've seen how this has affected him, the confusion, the worry. I should have asked more questions before I jumped to conclusions. Her apology meant more than she probably knew. You were doing your job, I said. I get that, but thank you for saying this. I want to do more than apologize, she said. I want to write a letter, stating my observations of your relationship with Liam, my professional assessment that he's a happy, well-adjusted child who clearly loves and trusts his father. You can use it however you need to. I accepted. The letter became part of a file Nathaniel maintained, along with the investigation reports, the clearance letters, character references from my employer, my neighbors, Rebecca's family. You're building a shield, he explained. If anyone ever questions your fitness as a parent again, you have overwhelming documentation. But the best vindication came from an unexpected source. 2 months after the incident, I was at Liam's school for parent-teacher conferences when I ran into Detective Moreno in the hallway. He had a daughter in the 5th grade, apparently. We made awkward eye contact, and I expected him to turn away. Instead, he approached. Mr. Ashford, do you have a minute? We stepped into an empty classroom. I've been thinking about your case, he said. About what you said on the phone, about the system making you prove your innocence. You were right, and you were wrong. The system has to investigate, but it also has to clear people properly when they're innocent. What happened to you, the whispers, the social isolation, that's a failure too. I waited, unsure where this was going. I'd like your permission to use your case as a training example, he said, for officers and social workers, showing how an innocent situation can be misinterpreted and how important it is to investigate thoroughly before letting assumptions spread. Obviously, all identifying details would be changed. I considered this. Will it help prevent what happened to me from happening to someone else? I can't promise that, he said honestly. But it might make investigators more careful about distinguishing between concerning language and actual indicators of abuse. It might make them more conscious of the collateral damage investigations cause. Then yes, I said. Use it. Just make sure they understand that mandatory reporting is still important. I don't want real abuse victims to be overlooked because everyone's afraid of false accusations. He shook my hand. You're a better man than I'd be in your position? Maybe. Or maybe I just understood that the system, flawed as it was, still mattered. Because for every case like mine, there were probably dozens where children really were in danger, where someone's call to authorities saved a life. 6 months after that camping trip, Liam and I returned to the same campsite. I'd debated whether to go back, whether the associations would be too painful. But Liam had been asking about when we could go camping again, and I realized letting fear win meant letting the false accusation have power it didn't deserve. We set up our tent in the same spot. We fished in the same creek, though Liam was more careful on the rocks this time. Dad, he said on Saturday night, roasting marshmallows by the fire, can I tell about this trip in class? I felt my stomach tighten, then forced myself to relax. Of course you can, buddy. Just maybe be a little more specific about what you mean when you describe things. He nodded seriously. Ms. Foster said I should use more details. Like instead of saying it hurt, I should say, my feet had pins and needles feeling when they warmed up. That's good advice, I said. Details help people understand exactly what you mean. He toasted his marshmallow, watching it brown in the flames. Some kids at school said their parents didn't want them to play with me for a while, but they're playing with me again now. My heart broke a little. I'm sorry that happened. It's okay, he said with the resilience of childhood. Kevin's mom said she was sorry for believing rumors. She made Kevin apologize for being mean to me. We're friends again. Children forgave so much more easily than adults. I wondered if I'd ever fully forgive the system that had put us through this, or if I'd carry that anger forever like a scar. We stayed up late watching stars, and I pointed out the same constellations I'd shown him on that first trip. Orion, the Big Dipper, Cassiopeia. The sky hadn't changed, and neither had our relationship. Whatever damage the investigation had tried to inflict, it had failed in the most important way. Liam still trusted me. He still wanted to spend time with me. He still called me every night at 8:30, even when he was at his mother's, just to say goodnight. Sunday morning, we packed up our gear and drove home. My phone had reception again about 20 miles from the campsite, and it buzzed with messages. One was from Rebecca. "Hope you guys are having fun. Liam's with you next week, so I'm planning a work trip. Thank you for being such a good dad." Another was from Nathaniel. "FYI, I used your case as an example in a family law seminar I taught this weekend. Everyone was shocked by how quickly innocent situations can escalate. You've helped more people than you know." The last one was from Patricia Donovan, the CPS investigator. "Mr. Ashford, I wanted you to know that your case has changed how we approach reports involving ambiguous language from children. We're implementing a new protocol that includes preliminary parent interviews before taking custody actions in non-emergency situations. Thank you for your cooperation during a difficult process." I showed the messages to Liam, explaining what they meant in kid-friendly terms. "So something good came from all that weird stuff?" he asked. "Something good came from it," I confirmed. "Sometimes bad situations teach people important lessons." He thought about this while we drove. Then, with the blunt honesty of 8-year-olds, he said, "I still think it was stupid that you couldn't see me just because I told a story wrong." "You didn't tell it wrong," I said. "You told it the way an 8-year-old tells stories. The grown-ups should have been better at listening." We got home late Sunday afternoon, and I helped Liam organize his school stuff for Monday. "Are you nervous about school?" I asked. "Nah," he said. "Ms. Foster is really nice now. She told me I could share about this camping trip if I wanted, but I don't have to if it makes me uncomfortable." She was trying, in her way, to make amends. Maybe that was enough. Monday morning, I dropped Liam off at school and watched him run to join his friends on the playground. He was laughing, playing tag, completely absorbed in the moment. No visible scars from what we'd been through. I hoped it stayed that way. At work, my supervisor, David Nguyen, called me into his office. I'd told him about the investigation when it happened, partly because I needed time off for meetings, partly because I knew rumors would spread. "Ian, I wanted to let you know that HR completed their review of the situation. You're completely cleared, obviously, but I also want to apologize for how I handled it initially. When you first told me about the investigation, I suggested you take a leave of absence until things settled down. That was wrong. It sent a message that I doubted you. I'd been hurt by that suggestion, the implication that I should hide until proven innocent. But David was apologizing now, owning his mistake. "Thank you," I said. "That means something." "I'm also recommending you for the senior accountant position that's opening up next quarter," he said. "Your work has always been excellent, and the way you handled this situation with dignity and professionalism, I told the partners you deserve recognition. It was a promotion I'd wanted for years, and getting it now felt like another piece of vindication." That evening, Liam and I made our traditional Sunday pancakes even though it was Monday, because we'd missed our routine that weekend. While we cooked, he chattered about his day, about the math test he'd aced, about the kickball game at recess. Normal, beautiful, mundane details of childhood. My phone rang. Rebecca. "Ian, you need to see the email Ms. Foster sent to all the third-grade parents." She forwarded it to me, and I read it while flipping pancakes. "Dear families, I want to address something that happened in our classroom several months ago. I made a report to authorities based on a student's presentation, believing I was protecting a child. The subsequent investigation found no wrongdoing, and I want to publicly state that I witnessed a loving, appropriate parent-child relationship. Rumors and whispers have no place in our school community. I ask that we all move forward with kindness and the understanding that the family involved deserves our support, not our suspicion. Sincerely, Angela Foster." It was more than I'd expected, more than she needed to do. It was a teacher risking her own reputation to restore mine. "She didn't have to do that," Rebecca said on the phone. "She really didn't," I agreed. "But I'm glad she did." That email changed things. Over the following weeks, the cold shoulders at school pickup thawed. Parents started making eye contact again, even smiling. One father, Aaron Mitchell, no wait, I need a different name. One father, Aaron Whitman, approached me at a school fundraiser. "I owe you an apology," he said bluntly. "When I heard about the investigation, I assumed the worst. I even told my kid to stay away from yours. That was wrong, and I'm sorry." "Apology accepted," I said, because what else was there to say? He nodded, relieved. "For what it's worth, my son says Liam is the kindest kid in class. Shares his snacks, includes everyone in games. That's a reflection of good parenting." The compliment hit harder than I expected, because for months, I doubted myself. Had I been too casual about the camping incident? Should I have called the school the next day, preemptively explaining? Had I somehow failed Liam by not anticipating how his words would be interpreted? But no. I'd been a good father. I'd kept my son safe, warm, and happy. The failure wasn't mine. It was in a system that moved too quickly from concern to accusation, that didn't distinguish between red flags and innocent explanations. Nathaniel called me on a Friday evening, 3 months after the investigation closed. Ian, I wanted to update you on something. Detective Moreno's training program, the one using your case as an example, it's being adopted statewide. They're calling it the Contextual Investigation Protocol. Basically, it requires investigators to gather full context, including parent interviews and documentation review, before making custody recommendations in non-emergency situations. That's because of my case? I asked, stunned. Yours and several others, but yes, you're literally changing how these investigations are handled. Fewer families will go through what you did. I sat down, processing this. All the pain, the fear, the anger. Maybe it hadn't been meaningless. Maybe something broken had been fixed, at least partially. Thank you for telling me, I said. I needed to hear that. That night, I wrote a letter I never planned to send, just for myself, processing everything that had happened. I wrote about the terror of being suspected, the helplessness of being separated from my son, the rage at a system that assumed guilt. But I also wrote about the people who'd helped. Rebecca, who'd never doubted me. Nathaniel, who'd fought for me. Dr. Warren, who'd been fair and thorough. Patricia Donovan, who'd recommended my custody restoration. Miss Foster, who'd made amends. Detective Moreno, who'd used the experience to improve the system. And I wrote about Liam, who'd forgiven everything without even knowing he needed to, who still trusted his dad completely, who still wanted to go camping and fishing and build Lego spaceships together. At the end of the letter, I wrote, I learned that systems are built by imperfect people trying to protect children, and sometimes those systems hurt innocent families. But I also learned that people can change, can apologize, can do better. And I learned that the bond between a father and son is stronger than any false accusation. I printed the letter and put it in a file folder labeled Camping Trip 2026. Someday, maybe when Liam was older, I'd show it to him. He'd understand then what his innocent words had set in motion and how we'd survived it together. A year later, Liam had another presentation in class. This time, the assignment was, tell about a time you were brave. He chose to talk about the camping trip, about falling in the freezing creek and having to tough out the painful warming up process. According to Ms. Foster, he explained it clearly, with good detail, and ended with, my dad taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're scared. He was brave too, when people didn't believe him. He stayed calm and told the truth until everyone understood. Ms. Foster emailed me after school. I thought you'd want to know what Liam said. He's a remarkable kid, and he clearly learned that courage from you. I showed the email to Rebecca when I picked Liam up from her place that evening. She smiled, that genuine smile I'd fallen in love with years ago, before marriage and divorce and co-parenting arrangements. He's going to be okay, she said. Better than okay. He's going to be great. We're both going to make sure of that, I said. And we did. We went camping every few months, building more memories that couldn't be misconstrued because I'd learned to be more careful, more thorough in documenting our trips. But more importantly, I'd learned that being a good parent sometimes meant being misunderstood, suspected, questioned, and still showing up, still fighting, still loving your child through the storm. Liam never knew the full weight of what we'd endured. He just knew that his dad would always be there, would always fight for him, would always choose him. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The whispers eventually stopped, the stares faded, the system changed, just a little, just enough to maybe prevent the next innocent parent from living through the same nightmare. And every night at 8:30, my phone rang, and Liam's voice said, "Good night, Dad. I love you." Every single night, without fail. Because nothing, not investigations or accusations or misunderstandings, could break what we'd built together. That was the real ending, not a dramatic courtroom vindication or a public apology, but the quiet, steady continuation of a father loving his son and a son trusting his father. The camping trips continued, the pancake Sundays resumed, the Lego spaceships got more complex. Life went on, as it always does, scarred but stronger. And sometimes, late at night, I'd think about that moment in the creek when Liam fell in, when I pulled him out dripping and shivering, when I made the split-second decision to prioritize his safety over any concern about appearances. I'd do it again, exactly the same way. Because that's what fathers do. We protect our children, even when that protection gets misunderstood, even when it costs us everything. We protect them anyway. And we trust that truth, eventually, will prevail. This time, it had. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So, subscribe now, and let me know your take in the comments.